The Galactic Military Academy floated in the darkness of space like a silver giant. Station 7 had trained soldiers from 43 different alien species for more than 200 years. Warriors came here as students and left as legends. The instructors were the best fighters in the known galaxy. They had survived wars that destroyed entire planets. They had killed enemies that most species only saw in nightmares. But there was one room in the academy that nobody used. Room 77H sat at the end of a long corridor on the training level. The sign on the door said Human Combat Techniques. The door had not opened in decades. Dust covered the handles. Cadets walked past it every day and never asked why it was empty. The older instructors knew the reason, but they never talked about it. Instructor stood 7 feet tall. Her body was covered in scales that changed color with her emotions. She was of a species known for their speed and strength. She had taught combat at the academy for 60 years. She had trained champions. She had broken records. She had never lost a single fight in her entire life. On this morning, she received a message on her neural display. The words floated in front of her eyes, visible only to her. She read them 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. A human transfer student was arriving today. The student's name was Park, age 22, former member of the Earth Defense Corps. She was being sent to the academy for something called integration purposes. Felt her scales shift to a pale blue. This was the sign of concern. Humans were rare in the galactic military. They preferred to keep to themselves on their little blue planet at the edge of known space. When they did leave Earth, they usually stayed in human-only units. A human joining a mixed-species academy was very unusual. The transport ship arrived at noon, watched from the observation deck as the small vessel docked with the station. Other cadets had gathered too. Word spread fast in the academy. Everyone wanted to see the human. The airlock opened. A young woman walked out. She was small, that was the first thing noticed. Compared to most species at the academy, the human female looked almost fragile. She stood about 5.5 feet tall. Her black hair was cut short. Her skin was a light brown color. She wore the standard uniform of a transfer student. She carried one small bag over her shoulder. She did not look dangerous at all. Cadet watched from the upper level. He was the academy's top-ranked combat student. His species, had produced many great warriors, but was special. He had defeated opponents twice his size. He had won the academy championship 3 years in a row. Everyone expected him to become the greatest fighter of his generation. His friend Lee stood next to him, was also but smaller and less aggressive than. He preferred strategy to direct combat. "So that is a human," said. "I expected something more impressive." Made a sound of agreement. "She looks weak. I have heard stories about humans, but I think they are just propaganda. Look at her. She is tiny. She has no claws, no scales, no natural armor of any kind. The stories say humans can run for days without stopping." "Impossible. No species can do that. They say humans can function without sleep for very long periods." Laughed. "More lies. Every living thing needs sleep. Humans are not special. They are just good at making weapons and machines. Without their technology, they are nothing." Below them, Park walked across the docking bay. She moved calmly and quietly. She did not look up at the watching cadets. She did not seem nervous or excited. She simply walked forward like she had done this 1,000 times before. Instructor met her at the entrance to the main corridor. "Welcome to Station 7. I am Instructor. I will show you to your quarters." The human looked up at her. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black. Noticed something strange in those eyes. They moved constantly, looking at everything around them. They tracked every cadet who walked past. They noted every door, every corner, every shadow. The human was mapping the entire station in her mind. "Thank you," said. Her voice was soft and polite. "I appreciate your help." They walked through the corridors together. Was 3 times the human size, but somehow the small woman kept pace easily. Her steps were silent on the metal floor. Scales made a slight clicking sound with each stride, but the human moved like a ghost. "You were Earth Defense Corps," said. "May I ask why you transferred to the academy?" "Orders," replied simply. "That is not much of an answer." "It is the only answer I have." They reached the student quarters. His room was small but clean. A bed, a desk, a storage unit for clothes, nothing special. She put her bag on the bed and looked around. "Training begins tomorrow at 0600, said. "The schedule will be sent to your neural display. Do you have any questions?" Turned to face her. Again, noticed those constantly moving eyes. They had already examined every inch of the small room. They had noted the location of the air vents, the thickness of the walls, the lock mechanism on the door. Just one question, said. Room 77H, the one for human combat training, why is it empty? Scales flashed white for just a moment. White meant fear. She controlled herself quickly, but the human had seen it, was sure of that. That room has been empty for a long time, said carefully. There has never been enough interest to open it. Smiled slightly, it was not a happy smile. I see, thank you, Instructor. Left quickly. As she walked back to her own quarters, she sent a message to the academy director. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed. The human has arrived. She asked about room 77H. I recommend increased observation. There is something about this one that makes me uncomfortable. I cannot explain it. She is small and quiet and polite, but when she looks at you, it feels like being watched by a predator. I have trained warriors for 60 years. I have never felt this way before. Please advise. The director's response came back in seconds. Observation approved. Keep your distance. Do not engage her in combat under any circumstances. This is a direct order. Read the message twice. In 60 years, no one had ever told her to avoid a student. Her scales turned pale blue again. What exactly had the humans sent them 3 weeks past? The human kept to herself. Attended every class. She completed every assignment. She scored perfectly on every written test. But she never spoke unless someone asked her a direct question. She sat alone in the dining hall. She trained alone in the early morning hours when most cadets were still sleeping. She refused every invitation to spar. Some cadets thought she was afraid. They laughed about her behind her back. They called her the quiet mouse and made jokes about human weakness. The stories about human abilities seemed more and more like fantasy. This small, silent woman could not possibly be dangerous. But Instructor watched her carefully. She noticed things that other people missed. She noticed that always sat with her back to a wall. She noticed that the human's eyes never stopped moving, even when she appeared to be reading or eating. She noticed that knew exactly who was in every room she entered, where they were standing, and how they were armed. The human was constantly aware of everything around her. Also noticed something else. When trained alone, she moved differently. In public, she was slow and careful. In private, when she thought no one was watching, she was fast, very fast, had excellent vision, but sometimes she could barely follow the human's movements. She reported this to the academy director. The response was always the same. Continue observation, do not engage. Cadet was getting impatient. He was main rival at the academy. He was big, aggressive, and proud. His scales were a deep red color, which meant he was always angry about something. He had won many fights through pure brutality. He did not like losing, and he did not like being ignored. The human ignoring everyone made him furious. She thinks she is better than us, said one evening in the common area. A crowd of cadets had gathered around him. She refuses to fight because she knows she will lose. Humans are cowards. They hide behind their machines and their weapons. Without technology, they are nothing. Listened but said nothing. He had been watching the human too. He was not so sure anymore that she was weak. There was something about the way she moved that bothered him. It was too controlled, too precise, like every step was calculated. Felt the same way. Maybe we should leave her alone, he said quietly too. Something about her feels wrong. Wrong how? I do not know, just wrong. The next day, everything changed. It happened during a routine combat demonstration. Instructor was teaching a class of 300 cadets in the main training hall. The lesson was about defensive techniques against larger opponents. She was demonstrating moves with volunteer students. Raised his hand. Instructor, I would like to request a special demonstration. Scales flickered. What kind of demonstration? I would like to spar with the human. He turned to look at who was sitting in the back row. Earthborn, your species claims to be warriors, yet you hide from every challenge. Perhaps humans are only brave when they have their machines and their weapons. Why don't you come down here and show us what you can really do? The training hall went completely silent. 300 cadets held their breath. Did not move. Her face showed no emotion at all. I am not interested, she said calmly. Of course you are not interested. You are afraid. All humans are afraid when they do not have their technology to protect them. You are soft, weak. You do not belong in this academy. Still did not move, but something changed in her eyes. The constant scanning stopped. Her gaze fixed directly on. It was like watching a targeting system lock onto a target. I said I am not interested. Laughed, see, she admits she is a coward. The great human warrior is nothing but a frightened little. Cadet, that is enough, Instructor said sharply. Her scales had gone pale. She could feel something in the air, something dangerous. Return to your seat. No, I want everyone to see the truth about humans. I want everyone to know that the stories are lies. He looked back at, fight me, human, unless you are too scared. Stood up slowly. She walked down the stairs toward the training mat. Her footsteps made no sound at all. Her face was perfectly calm. Her breathing was perfectly steady. She stopped at the edge of the mat and looked at. Are you sure? She asked quietly. I am sure I am going to teach you a lesson. That is not what I asked. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. I asked if you are sure, because once we start, I will not be able to stop myself. It is very hard for humans to stop once we begin. Laughed again. Listen to her trying to scare me. Just get on the mat, human. Stepped onto the mat. She did not take any fighting stance. Her arms hung loosely at her sides. Her body was completely relaxed. She looked like she was waiting for a bus, not preparing for combat. Instructor rushed to the control panel. Director, we have a situation in the main training hall. The human is about to engage in combat with Cadet. Please advise immediately. The director's voice came through the speakers, loud and urgent. Instructor, stop this immediately. That is a direct order from the Galactic Council. Stop the fight now. But it was already too late. Was moving. His scales had turned bright red with excitement. He was going to destroy this small, weak human in front of everyone. He was going to prove that humans were nothing special. He was going to become a legend. He launched himself with all his strength. The human did not move. She just watched him come. And she smiled. Signature move was called the Crimson Wheel. It was a spinning aerial kick that used the full rotation of his body to generate maximum power. His leg would cut through the air like a blade. The force behind it could shatter bones. It could crack armor. It had broken the shells of warriors, a species known for their nearly unbreakable exoskeletons. He had practiced this move 10,000 times. He had perfected it over years of training. No one at the academy could block it. No one could dodge it. The attack was simply too fast. He launched into the spin. His body became a blur of red scales. His leg swept upward in a perfect arc. The air itself seemed to scream as his foot cut through it. 300 cadets watched in amazement. Even Instructor had to admit it was beautiful, deadly but beautiful. The kick was aimed directly at its head. At that speed with that power, it would kill her instantly, or at least it should have. Raised her hand. Not quickly, not desperately. She raised it slowly, almost casually, like she was reaching for something on a high shelf. Her thumb and forefinger came together, and then she pinched. She pinched his ankle. Mid-air, mid-rotation, at the exact moment when his kick had reached maximum velocity. She caught his leg between two fingers and stopped it completely. The sound that filled the training hall was strange. It was the sound of all that momentum, all that force, all that power, suddenly hitting a wall and going nowhere. It was like a thunderclap without the thunder, just a deep, heavy thud that everyone felt in their chests. Hung in the air, his entire body was frozen in the position of his kick. His leg was extended. His arms were spread for balance, but he was not moving. He was being held up by two human fingers wrapped around his ankle. The hall was completely silent. No one breathed, no one blinked. Looked up at him, her expression had not changed at all. She still looked calm, relaxed, maybe even a little bored. Your species generates power through rotation and mass, she said. Her voice was quiet, but in the silence, everyone could hear her perfectly. You wind up your attacks like machines. You build momentum over time and release it all at once. It makes your strikes very powerful, but it also makes them very predictable. Tried to speak, but no sound came out. His scales had gone completely white. This was the expression of absolute terror. He had never felt anything like this before. He was one of the strongest fighters at the academy, and this tiny human was holding him in the air with two fingers like he weighed nothing at all. I could see your attack coming before you even started moving, continued. Your shoulder dropped, your weight shifted. Your eyes looked at where you wanted to hit. You told me exactly what you were going to do, and then you did it slowly enough for me to respond. She tilted her head slightly. studying him like a scientist studying an interesting specimen. Humans evolved differently. We did not have claws. We did not have fangs. We did not have armor or venom or natural weapons of any kind. We were soft and slow and weak compared to the predators on our planet. We should have died out millions of years ago. Her grip tightened slightly, gasped in pain. But we did not die out. We survived, do you know how? She did not wait for an answer. We survived because we learned to see patterns. Our brains developed the ability to predict what would happen next based on tiny movements, tiny changes, tiny signals that other species cannot even detect. We learned to read our enemies like books. We learned to know what they would do before they knew themselves. She released him, crashed to the mat. He scrambled backward on his hands and feet, putting as much distance between himself and the human as possible. His legs were shaking. His scales were still white. He looked like he had seen a ghost. Stood in the center of the mat, completely still. We also learned something else, she said. We learned to keep going. When a predator caught us, we did not die easily. We fought back. We took injuries that should have killed us and kept fighting. We lost blood and kept fighting. We broke bones and kept fighting. We learned that the only way to survive was to be more stubborn than death itself. She looked around the hall at the watching cadets. 300 pairs of eyes stared back at her. No one moved, no one spoke. Humans are not strong, said. We are not fast, we are not tough, but we are very, very good at one thing. We are good at not giving up. We are good at taking punishment that would kill other species and getting back up again. We are good at suffering. She paused. And we are good at making our enemies suffer with us. Instructor's legs felt weak. Her scales had gone completely white, matchings. She understood now. She finally understood why room 77H had been empty for 200 years. She understood why no one taught human combat techniques. It was not because there was no interest. It was because human combat could not be taught. It was not a style or a technique or a method. It was biology. It was evolution. It was millions of years of survival against impossible odds baked into every cell of the human body. And it was terrifying. Walked off the mat, she walked up the stairs to her seat in the back row. She sat down and folded her hands in her lap. Please continue the lesson, instructor, she said politely. No one said a word for a very long time. The academy director was named Mora. She was a species that looked like tall, thin humanoids with multiple eyes arranged around their heads, could see in all directions at once. They were known for their wisdom and their ability to process large amounts of information quickly. Mora had led the academy for over a century. She had seen many things, but she had never seen anything like what happened in the training hall. 2 hours after the incident, Park sat in the director's private office. Instructor stood against the wall, her scales still pale from shock. A third person was also present. Commander was one of only 3 humans to ever hold high rank in the galactic military. He was old, with hair and deep lines on his face. His eyes were tired but sharp. You were ordered to maintain a low profile, Commander said too. His voice was calm but heavy with disappointment. He challenged me publicly, replied. In front of 300 cadets. If I had refused, it would have damaged human reputation more than accepting. Our species would have been seen as cowards. And now our species is seen as monsters. Said nothing, she knew he was right. Director Mora leaned forward. Her many eyes studied the young human carefully. I have watched the recording of the fight 17 times. I still do not understand what I saw. You caught us kick with 2 fingers. The force behind that attack was measured at nearly 8,000 units. It should have broken every bone in your hand. It should have torn your arm from your body. Instead, you held it like it was nothing. It was not nothing, said quietly. It hurt. But you showed no sign of pain. Humans are good at hiding pain. We have had a lot of practice. Instructor stepped forward. Her voice trembled slightly. Director, I have taught combat for 60 years. I have trained warriors from dozens of species. I have never seen anything like this. The reaction time alone should be impossible. The grip strength required defies everything I know about biology. I need to understand. The academy needs to understand. She looked directly at. Why has no one ever taught human combat techniques? Why is room 77H empty? And Commander looked at each other. A silent conversation passed between them. Finally, the old commander nodded. Because it cannot be taught, said. Not to other species. Human combat is not a style. It is not a technique. It is not something you can learn in a classroom or practice in a training hall. It is built into our bodies at the deepest level. It is the result of millions of years of evolution on a planet that was trying very hard to kill us. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Our ancestors were persistence hunters. Do you know what that means? It means we did not catch our prey by being faster or stronger. We caught them by following them until they collapsed. We would chase an animal for days, not hours, days. We would walk and jog and walk some more while our prey ran and rested and ran and rested. Eventually, the animal would fall down from exhaustion, and we would still be coming. Director Mora's eyes blinked in different patterns. This was the expression of disbelief. That is not possible. No species can maintain physical activity for days without rest. Humans can. Our bodies are designed for it. We sweat to cool ourselves so we do not overheat like other species. Our legs are built for efficient long-distance movement. Our brains can keep functioning even when our bodies are exhausted. We are the ultimate endurance predators. Commander spoke next. There is more. Human bodies have other abilities that the galactic community does not fully understand. We can ignore injuries that would disable other species. Our adrenaline response allows us to perform feats of strength and speed that seem impossible under normal conditions. We can lose nearly half our blood and still remain conscious. We can have our hearts stopped for several minutes and be brought back to full function. Instructor's scales had gone white again. That sounds like you are describing machines, not living beings. We are living beings, said. But we evolved on a world where being a living being was not enough to survive. We had to become something more, something harder, something that could take damage and keep going no matter what. Director Mora was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke carefully. The Galactic Council classified human combat capabilities as a military secret 70 years ago. I have read the sealed files, but I never truly believed them. I thought they were exaggerations, propaganda. She paused. I was wrong. Why was it classified? Asked. Why keep this secret? Commander's old face became very serious. Because the last time humans fought a full-scale war against another species, we did not just defeat them, we made them extinct. The room went completely silent. They were called the commander continued. They attacked Earth's first colony world without warning. They killed 30,000 civilians in the initial assault. They thought humans would surrender. They thought we would negotiate. They did not understand what they had started. He paused, and his eyes seemed to look at something very far away. The war lasted 12 years. They had better ships, better weapons, better technology in every way, but humans did not fight with ships and weapons. We fought on the ground. We fought in conditions that no other species could survive. We fought in frozen wastelands and burning deserts and poisonous swamps. We took casualties that would have broken any other army, and we kept coming. By the end, said softly, there were no left. Not because we wanted to destroy them all, but because they would not stop fighting, and neither would we. They did not know how to surrender, and humans do not know how to give up. Director Mora closed her many eyes. The Galactic Council decided it was better for galactic stability if humans remained underestimated. They decided that the full extent of human physical abilities should never be revealed. They decided that Room 77H should remain empty forever. Until now, Instructor said. Yes, until now. Looked down at her hands, the hands that had caught a killing blow like it was nothing. I am sorry, I should have controlled myself better. I should have found another way. Commander shook his head. No, perhaps it is time for the truth to come out. Humans have been hiding for too long. Maybe it is time for the galaxy to remember what we really are. Director Mora opened her eyes. And what is that, Commander? What are humans really? The old man looked then at the director, then at the trembling Instructor. We are the species that survived, he said simply. Against all odds, against all logic, against all reason, we survived, and we will keep surviving no matter what the universe throws at us. That is what humans are, that is what we have always been. The room was silent for a very long time. Word spread through the academy like fire through dry grass. The official reports were sealed. The recordings were classified. But 300 cadets had seen what happened in the training hall, and 300 cadets had mouths that would not stay shut. Within a week, everyone on Station 7 knew about the human who caught a killing blow with 2 fingers. Within a month, the story had spread to other stations, other academies, other worlds. The details changed with each telling. Some versions said she had caught the kick with 1 finger. Some said she had thrown across the room afterward. Some said she had laughed while doing it. The truth was strange enough without the exaggerations. Cadets started treating differently. Before, they had ignored her or mocked her behind her back. Now they stepped aside when she walked through the corridors. They lowered their voices when she entered a room. They watched her with careful, respectful eyes. The kind of eyes you use when watching a sleeping predator. Never spoke to her again. He never spoke about the fight either. When other cadets asked him what it had felt like, he would just shake his head and walk away. His scales had never fully returned to their normal red color. There was always a little white mixed in now. Found on the observation deck one evening, about a week after the incident. She was standing alone, watching ships come and go through the station's docking ports. The stars stretched out behind her like an infinite ocean of lights. He approached carefully. "May I join you?" She glanced at him, then turned back to the window. "If you want." He stood next to her, keeping a respectful distance. For a while, neither of them spoke. They just watched the ships and the stars together. "I wanted to apologize," finally said, "for what I thought before. When you first arrived, I believed you were weak. I believed the stories about humans were lies. I was wrong." Shrugged slightly. "You believed what you were meant to believe. The Galactic Council has worked very hard to make humans seem ordinary. You cannot blame yourself for falling for their deception." "Still, I was arrogant. I judged you without knowing anything about you." "Most species do. It is not your fault. It is just how things are." They were quiet again for a moment, gathered his courage, and asked the question that had been bothering him since the fight. "How do you do it? Pretend to be normal, I mean. Walking around every day knowing what you are capable of. Knowing that you could probably defeat anyone on this station without even trying hard. How do you act like a regular person?" Turned to look at him. Her dark eyes were calm but deep, like pools of water hiding unknown depths. "The same way you do. Every species has things they do not show, capabilities they hold back, instincts they control. Humans just learned earlier than most that raw power without restraint leads to extinction." "But you did not hold back against." "No, I did not." She looked back at the stars. "That was a mistake. I let his words anger me. I let my instincts take over. A better human would have walked away." "I do not think anyone would call what you did a mistake. He challenged you. He insulted your entire species. You had every right to respond." "Having the right to do something and being right to do it are two different things." Her voice was soft. "Humans have learned this lesson many times throughout our history. We have the ability to do terrible things. We have the ability to destroy anyone who threatens us. But ability is not the same as wisdom. Power is not the same as righteousness." "Thought about this? Is that why humans stay on Earth? Why you do not spread across the galaxy like other species?" "Partly, we know what we are capable of. We know what happens when we go to war. We destroyed them because we did not know how to stop. We do not want that to happen again, so we stay in our corner of space. We keep to ourselves. We try to be peaceful." "But you are here, at a military academy." "Yes, because peace requires strength. If humans appear weak, other species might be tempted to attack us like they did. So we send a few of our people out into the galaxy. We remind the universe every now and then that we are still here, that we are still dangerous, that attacking Earth would be a very bad idea." She paused. "I am a reminder, nothing more." Considered her words. Then he asked another question, one that surprised even himself. "Would you teach me? Not human techniques. I understand now that those cannot be learned, but how you think, how you see patterns, how you predict what an enemy will do before they do it." Studied him for a long moment. Her constantly moving eyes were still for once, focused entirely on him. He felt like she was looking inside his mind, reading his thoughts, judging his character. "Why do you want to learn?" she asked. "Because I want to be a better fighter, and I think understanding how humans see the world would make me better." "There is another reason. I can see it in your eyes." Hesitated, then he admitted the truth. "I am afraid of becoming like, strong but blind, powerful but arrogant. I do not want to be defeated by my own pride someday. I want to understand my weaknesses before someone else exploits them." Was quiet for a very long time. The stars wheeled slowly past the window, ships docked and departed. Life continued all around them. Finally, she spoke. "I can try to teach you, but you must understand something first. Human combat philosophy begins with a truth that most species find very disturbing." "What truth?" That we fight best when we have already accepted that we might die. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. We do not fear death the way other species do. We have looked at it, studied it, written poetry about it for thousands of years. Our entire civilization is built on the awareness that we are temporary, that everything we love will eventually end, that nothing lasts forever. She turned to face him fully, and we decided that if we are going to die anyway, we might as well take our enemies with us. We might as well fight until the last breath. We might as well never surrender, never give up, never stop struggling, because what is the point of stopping? Death is coming either way. At least if we keep fighting, we might take someone with us when we go. Felt a chill run down his spine. He suddenly understood, truly understood, why the Galactic Council kept human abilities classified. It was not just because humans were strong or fast or tough. It was because of how they thought, how they saw the universe, how they faced death. Other species fought to survive. Humans fought because fighting was all they knew how to do. They fought like creatures who had nothing to lose because in their minds they had already lost everything. They were already dead. They were just too stubborn to lie down. That is terrifying, he said honestly. Yes, agreed. It is. That is why most species prefer not to know. She turned back to the window, the stars reflected in her dark eyes. Still want to learn? Took a deep breath. He thought about everything she had said. He thought about the fight. He thought about white scales and trembling legs. He thought about what it meant to face an enemy who was not afraid to die. Yes, he said, I still want to learn. Smiled. It was a small smile, but real. Maybe the first real smile he had seen from her. Good, we start tomorrow. Be ready. Far below them, in the dusty corridor on the training level, a light flickered on outside room 77H. The door remained closed. The room remained empty. But somewhere in the Academy's computer system, a notice appeared. Room 77H, status under review, possible reopening pending Galactic Council approval. The universe was about to remember what humans really were. And this time, they would not be allowed to forget.